Free energy now.
Imagine a world in which each home has its own power generator that obtains its energy in such a way that no fuel has to be added. Imagine every vehicle being able to run without ever stopping for fuel. Imagine each appliance having its own power source that never has to be recharged. That is the world of the future. Join with us now as we track our progress towards such a world.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sterling Allen. You can join us online at freeenergyquest.com. We're joined today, September 4th, 2014, by David Puchtas of Proton Spin Technologies in California. He's going to be telling us about his latest work with his HydroMe True Fuel Cell and his Blue Me fuels grown organically from saltwater. But first, before we get into that, let's do our This Week in Free Energy News recap. Heading our news this week, Gaia Energy, Global Association for Independent Energy and Altruism out of Germany/Austria, have been stunning us with what they've been coming up with. They've been quietly but not ineffectively using manufacturing or been doing manufacturing of HHO units, and now recently they've been manufacturing Roche buoyancy home power systems. They may be the first to commercially produce exotic free energy technologies for home power applications. We're in process of trying to get a bead on just how far along they are, what they have, who they are. They've been quietly going about and doing some amazing things over there. I watched a couple of their videos today. Amazing group of Germans over there. Germans have a great reputation for engineering, and it looks like they're carrying on in that tradition. So earlier in actually yesterday, posted a link demo tour schedule for their buoyancy power systems coming actually in 2 days, September 6th. If you live over in Europe, you can go check that out. The device is small, 2 meters high, but is self-running and produces 300 watts over unity power. That's just a demonstrator, not the home power system that is quite a bit larger than that. Did a story earlier this week of Solar Hydrogen Trends response to the Register's, quote, bad math. Robert Avatizian, who's working with Solar Hydrogen Trends team, submitted a rebuttal to the Registered article. And in response to Solar Hydrogen Trends press release, pointing out some false assumptions and bad math, I did a poll about the offensiveness of the wording of Robert's rebuttal. Had some interesting input on that. The audience, while being supportive of Solar Hydrogen Trends in general, did agree that maybe they were a bit over the top in some of the language that was used in that rebuttal. Just a little politics going on. We got an update from G1, Gyroscopic Resonant Inertia Pulse Motor Generator, an unprecedented system that operates in open synchronization. The large moment of inertia of the gyro flywheel helps resist a change in motion under load of its inboard three-phase alternator attached directly to the gyro, while not being mechanically connected to the local axis of symmetry. If the load is excessive, it breaks free to freewheel and resynchronize as the conditions change. QEG has finished their funding through donations of 1,000 people. They did an update, so they're able to complete their phase 3. They also showed some photos from their collaboration with Tesla Energy Solutions LLC. American Visionary Art Museum to feature Tesla Pond and others. Quote, our musical Dinospheres will be featured on display at the American Visionary Art Museum in Baltimore, Maryland. Opens October 4th, runs through August 30th. I did a little editorial yesterday, Free Energy News disappears. How would you feel if you were confronted with that headline? Or what if there were no headline, only the disappearance of our Free Energy News service because funds were insufficient to maintain it? even as we are so close to the Free Energy Quest finally materializing. Just a little plug for donations, and obviously we would love to get some loans because we're confident that this thing is going to materialize and we'll be able to pay back those loans. So far, that petition has not been answered. We'd love to not have to hit people up for donations. HHO bubbling into your drinking water for health healing, the same hydrogen gas used to save you gas and fuel efficiency and could run engines 100% on water in the future, can be bubbled into our drinking water to create microclustered structured water for healing all cells in your body. And the role of free energy in empowering society, a little thing I did on my Sterling Sunday School, tied it into free energy. And also I posted a page, Best Free Energy Applications, a list and prioritized strategic way of the best applications for exotic free energy technologies when they become available. Criteria include promoting freedom and independence from the corrupt powers that be, to support emergency preparedness, to empower the individual, to support societal infrastructure, etc. Go check that out. Hoverbike by Chris Malloy was actually one of the things that spurred me to write or compose that page about the best applications, because a hoverbike would be a great place to put a free energy device. Go 100 miles an hour up to 10,000 feet high. They build a third-scale hoverbike drone that you can actually purchase, and it's a remote control device. Pretty nice-looking technology. Talking about sexy, Quant e-Sportsman limousine approved for EU roads. Their car uses saltwater flow cell systems to power 4 electric motors. Not too far remote, if I understand right, from what David Puchtas, our guest today, is going to be talking to us about. Rainmaker on the Ridge, Peter Stevens' machine works by reflecting sun's rays during the day, heating lights at night. With the aid of magnets, this forms a vortex of negatively charged ions in the atmosphere. Little weather modification technology from the good guys. And now, with that recap of This Week in Free Energy, let's now shift over to our guest, David Puchtas. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sterling, for having me on your show again. Well, it appears through the consciousness of everything that's been going on the last couple of years that everybody is moving closer to a direction, and it makes it safer to move and build and industrialize this type of technology. And that, for me, is a pretty nice feeling. And you can point to several different directions on the compass. You can go to the Naval Research Lab. They were able to produce CO2 and hydrogen binding to create a synthetic fuel. A couple guys are doing CO2 to plastic. I did do a little research on the saltwater car, and it makes a lot of sense. Having different potential salts, just like a flow-through battery, and then you change the water as needed, and doesn't seem to be anything environmentally detrimental over the long run in masses. You got water that's salty that can be cleaned up, or it can go into a recycle center. You could practically pull into a gas station and get new water as your old water through a standardized nozzle system, could put it into a tank, it could be regenerated and not really much loss. It makes sense. You can't do that with acids or a bunch of other things without just huge environmental impact, but saltwater seems to be fine. It's kind of the same things we're working on here, moving right into that, is we're making saltwater, we're making fuel through a proprietary process, as you know, but it's nothing different than what's kind of peaking in a lot of people's technology now. I've been doing this since 2006. I get it. And the reason we're having this conversation is sort of a promotional phone call and advertisement as well. Everybody who's followed me understands that I can make fuel from saltwater. They understand I can make oil, isotopes, different metals, and grow those out.
Let's clarify that for a second. When you talk about fuel from saltwater, we're not talking electricity. We're talking stuff you can put in your car, right?
Right. We're using the linear magnetic platform, linear magnetism, that I've developed And we're using that to grow a high lipid algae and then extract the algae oil out of that on an on-demand scenario. Just like you would be growing algae in a pond or a borosilicate tubing, but traditionally they need 350,000 gallons of water to make a gallon of fuel. And once sunlight gets saturation, or once the tubes in a borosilicate tubing algae pond get saturation, the sunlight can't get in the middle. So it's very difficult to get, a pudding type saturation. We get a pudding type saturation because we're able to grow the microbes with this energy platform that traditionally, if you put electrolysis in saltwater, you would be making chlorine. And that's been proven throughout this technology for a very, very long time that we're different. And so being able to use that into a marketable product is where we're at. And the marketable product that I've been putting on the table is HydroMe True Fuel Cell, which is a hydrogen deuteride fuel cell that produces a magnetic heavy specific gravity gas. And that's part one of the fuel cell. So in your mind, if I could paint a picture, it would look no different than a catalytic electrolytic fuel cell, with proper controls to that. And then the second part of it is HydroMe, which is BLEWME, BLEWME, stands for past tense microbial electrolysis, and that produces the specific strain of algae that we have identified and separated from common saltwater. Once that grows out, it grows into a high lipid oil capturing algae, and then from that point, the refining process is brought into an oil and on demand. It's a very fast process. I've demonstrated on the Smart Scarecrow show and other places, and it grows extremely fast.
Now, when you talk about on demand, you're talking about on board, like you're driving down the road and you've got something in the back, a reactor that's doing all this stuff. Is that correct?
Correct. Our fuel cells for on board produce it on board and they supplement. What we're building right now, and we're under contract to build, and what will be done, and my timeline is very short here on this contract, they've got a very tight leash on me, is to produce a standalone generating unit, genset, that will produce the fuel on demand in excess enough to grow enough to have a reservoir to run the generator. So instead of storing the hydrogen like you would normally store it in a battery or anything else, we're able to condense it into a fuel, into an oil. And now it's stored like we'd store any other oil, and the densities all coincide to that.
Now, when you talk about contracting to build and you're making one of these, do I understand properly that these things are actually something that people can buy? They can plunk down money and get one from you? Yes,
that's the whole point here. It's the point I've made all along. Is I'm not interested in, R&D has been done a long time ago. Proof of concepts, laboratory work done and understood and securely defined in physics a long time ago. So we're at the point where we're contracting and building. And if anybody's ever breezed my Hydrogen for Power channel, you can see the size systems that we're building for the water treatment side of it. And we're not giving you any indication what's going on there, and we're not making any claims what going on there. What we're showing you is that the size systems that we're building are in containers, and I want you to see the fit and finish and quality of the machining and fabrication skills that we have available to us to build.
Yeah, you have invited me to come on over and see this around September 15th or so.
Correct.
And we're hoping to have Mike Waters, who's going to be in the area. He'll be able to come in with us. That'd be great.
That would be nice. And as things get closer to the final point, the correct non-disclosures and paperwork you'll have to be will be addressed with you and everything else to make sure that that is completely okay with me and my customers. And going
we
forward,
will be able to shoot some stuff that will be able to go out to the public, though, right?
Yeah, and it'll just depend on at that time if this customer wishes to follow suit of what they're doing, because they're taking the lead on bringing it to the market.
When you say they're taking a lead, are they just to demonstrate their system in situ, or are you talking about, or in vivo? Are you talking about them actually going into production, as in manufacturing these things?
No, we'll be doing the manufacturing, but this will be this customer chooses to reserve an exclusive right to bring it to the market, and that hasn't been formally signed yet, but it's
so they would be a distributor
on my end. They would be the marketing distributor. Yes.
Okay. So the NDAs would be protect their identity and any other things that you don't want out yet, and we would be looking at what you have built for them. And we may have to wait a while to get their permission to distribute that information?
Potentially, yeah, depending on how everything goes in the next couple of weeks. But the reality is, as it stands at the moment, this is my company, and I can sell to whoever I want. So if they execute their final contract to exclusive contract, as they've stated to, then that I'll still be involved. You can call me and contact me. You can order from me, but it'll just go through a different business name outside of hydrogen injection systems. That's all. But everything will be built in-house. There will be no outside, no shipped overseas, no anything. Everything will come from inside the United States of America, and all components that we build in these fuel cells are spec'd for the United States of America. All the metals that we put in it are spec'd in USA foundries. I know exactly where the metal's coming from. I've got all the metal cut sheets, and everything's validated once it gets here by atomic absorption and by X-ray fluorescence to make sure that the metals match the cut sheet from the foundries. And I'm very serious about those things. Every bit of the circuit boards, they're all made here in the United States. All the components that we can possibly track are built right here in the United States. For all the stuff, the wire that we use is built in New Jersey. So we know exactly where all the components are coming from. And that's very important to me.
Now let's talk for a minute. Let's kind of paint a visual picture of this product. Since we probably wouldn't be able to post a photo yet, how big is it? How much energy how much fuel does it produce? Where would you fit it in the vehicle? What kind of vehicle would it go on? Let's kind of paint a visual picture.
Well, I'll give you a dimension of our smaller unit. It's about 32 inches long, about 4 inches wide, and about 18 inches tall. So that gives you a kind of a visual box to think about, plus associated electronics that are in, high quality housings and stuff. And that's pretty much it. That's as far as I can go on that side, the larger unit.
So we're talking a semi-truck size.
The smaller unit is designed to fit behind, like when you open up the trunk of a mid-sized car, and we'll go ahead and pick Mercedes-Benz for that. If you open up the trunk of a Mercedes-Benz, you've got a wall behind the trunk, and it's meant to sit, right there with a carbon fiber housing around it so that you can throw your golf clubs up against it. Nothing matters. And like I stated before, it operates wirelessly through a Bluetooth link to the OBD, or onboard diagnostics, and then ultimately to your car's computer. And that can be tracked via an application off of your smartphone, and you can watch all your fuel mileage, your gains. You can turn on and off the unit, and it works very nicely in that fashion.
Okay, I'm having a bit of a disconnect here because the dimensions that I wrote down, if I heard them right, were 32 inches long, 40 inches wide, 8 feet tall.
No, 18 inches tall.
Oh, okay. Glad I clarified
about the
that.
size of a briefcase. a little bit long briefcase.
So yeah, it could fit back. And you've given us dimensions and where it would be located. What would it be doing?
Taking water as a medium of growing and growing the algae on board and reforming it into an oil as you drive down the street or as you're parked.
Now that sounds crazy. Something that size, growing your fuel as you go down the road. We're going to have to go to break here in a minute, but you're going to have to explain because I'm having a hard time. I'm an easy sell on outside the box stuff, and I'm having a hard time with this one. That just seems too amazing. But we will get more when we come back from break. Don't go away.
Known worldwide as the most consistently fascinating, informative, and unique program on radio, the Jeff Rense program can be yours to listen to anytime, anywhere, whenever you want to hear it. For pennies a day, our subscribers can download any of Jeff's thousands of programs featuring a treasury of newsmakers, researchers, eyewitnesses, and incredible subjects, all in MP3 commercial-free, crystal-clear 56-bit digital sound, and take these often unforgettable programs with them wherever they go. As a subscriber, you can also listen live at airtime, online, anywhere in the world, or browse through our archives of over 6,000 hours of legendary broadcasts. Subscribe now by taking the link at the top of Rense.com and enrich your mind with the most unique panorama of vital information and the best independent, honest journalism in radio. Look for the Subscribe Now link on Rense.com and give yourself the knowledge you need for these unprecedented times.
Presently, the number one technology in our top 5 exotic free energy technologies listing at top5energy.com is what we call hydroxy technology, in which onboard electrolysis creates oxygen and hydrogen. Unseparated, it's also called Brown's gas or HHO. By then adding this to the fuel, the mileage and horsepower of an engine can be significantly improved while reducing emissions. One of the reasons for this is that Brown's gas breaks down the larger chain fuel molecules so they can be utilized and not exhausted, unburned. There are many companies worldwide that are making and selling these hydroxy systems. We've compiled a list for you at besthydroxytechnologies.com. When you find one you like, be sure to tell them that Sterling Allen of PES referred you. Again, that's besthydroxytechnologies.com.
As you listen to and benefit from this Free Energy Quest show, as we track the many cutting-edge clean energy technologies likely to not only be ecological, but economical as well, we would like to remind you that we are listener-supported. You can send donations via PayPal to donate@pesn.com, or you can click on the donate link found on our web pages. You might consider a monthly pledge. You're welcome to send us ideas about possible advertisers or products to present to our esteemed audience via that email as well. Because we spend so much time doing the news, we don't spend quite as much time as we should looking for advertisers and items we can sell in our store, a process that can be quite time-consuming. So presently we depend on your donations to help keep us afloat. With your assistance, we can help transform this planet from a scarcity slave mentality to an abundance creator mentality with exotic free energy technologies bringing power and freedom to the people. Again, that email address is donate@pesn.com.
Free energy now.
Welcome back to the show. We are talking with the one and only David Puchtas from California, talking about his HydroMe onboard fuel generating system using algae and salt water. And oh my gosh, we're talking about something the size of a long briefcase sitting behind your back seat that could provide the fuel on demand as you're driving down the road, making the fuel in the back seat, behind the back seat. What are you guys doing back there? So, David, what?
Yes.
Are you? What kind of maintenance of this thing, and what kind of? these guys just, is there some input that's going on? Are you having to add water through a trickle? What's going on?
Well, the best part about it is, hold on one second. Okay. Hold on. I have to do one thing. Hold on one second.
Okay. Remember, he's at his machine shop. He's got people working there doing stuff, so you have to excuse him as he takes care of business there. He sent me a lot of videos and photos and whatnot. They have a really serious operation going on there. I was able to spend some time with David at the last Tesla Tech conference he attended. We were both down there, and he really made a big cannonball splash with his presence there. Almost every presentation, he got up, asked questions, made some interesting observations, very, genius kind of thing. So, I think he's the real deal, and I'm looking forward to my first trip to go see him in maybe less than a couple of weeks. Looking forward to seeing what he's got, what he's doing, his team, and getting a visual of the stuff that he's talking about today. And hopefully sooner than later we'll be able to report that to you so you can see what's going on. You back, Dave?
Yep, I'm back. So, thank you for that. A little bit of a pep talk. I appreciate that. So, I've already demonstrated. I tried to make a very simplistic demonstration on Gary's show, and show that the fuel can be grown out pretty much right in front of your eyes. It's just two electrodes that are 3 inches long, and it's just right. It instantly happens right in front of you. So, taking that bench top, that it's just, I try to introduce you to the magnetism, linear magnetism, pump, filter. Okay, thank you. Gracias. So, try to introduce you to the platform and the understanding of what can possibly go on, and just taking that, and you can see from, like I said, some of the videos that we put on that we're building bigger systems, and these help farmers. They can give fertilizer, they give clean water back to their farming operations and fuel or energy. So the common ground here, so we don't go into voodoo land or free energy lost in space. Physics. Just go back to physics. We know that algae produces electricity when you find the correct algae, dug it up out of the ocean, probably no different than the Egyptians did, and you can harness electricity from that. Now,
let me just mention really quick, we have an index page at PezWiki on microbes that create electricity, so I can tell you that this is common mainstream science. This is not voodoo. Right.
So you got that, you put that on check number one. Then you figure out check number two, that algae grown out in sunlight has a reproduction rate. If you were to use sunlight or sun's energy, it has 3,000 times more stored energy into it than it takes to grow it. So they can't reproduce that with light bulbs, or that would have been done. But they know that the looms, or the energy measured from the sun, then take the algae away from the algae ponds. It has 3,000 times more BTUs than it takes to grow it. So you put that in the ball, check number two.
Okay, hold on a second. So you're saying the amount of energy that the microbes are taking in to make the fuel in the first place is 3,000 times less than what they're putting out in the form of burnable fuel? Correct. And that's established science?
That's been proven in the algae biofuel pond borosilicate tubing world that's growing out in sunlight. Okay, so that's already been proven. We don't have to worry about that. We know that if you, as we've harnessed the correct algae strain, it's got the same DNA as our fossil fuel. They know that our fossil fuel comes from algae seeping through the oil, through the sand beds. We talked about that on the last program. We're not going to go back into that. So you start putting all these checkpoints into place, and now you come to linear magnetism, which is clearly a gravitational energy. It's not electromagnetic at all. It doesn't have a magnetic signature, as electromagnetism does. It's gravitational. And this is something that's important to repeat, is that there's 4 waves of energy. You've got, if you were to call them electromagnetism and linear magnetism, you have positive and negative electromagnetism, and you have positive or negative linear magnetism or gravitational energy. And you put those together and you get linear magnetism. You get the effects of linear magnetic effect. When it pushes back, you get the energy that magnets are formed and harness at all times. You get to now produce that energy instead of transforming it into electromagnetism. You get to produce the original energy that produced that magnetic energy, if you would say, or gravitational. It's better to say gravitational because we all know if it were magnetic type energy like a magnet, we would be floating on magnets already. It's not the same. It's the contrary of that. So you put all these things together, and then you realize that you can grow algae with electrical impulses of linear magnetism as the same as you would outside. It's basically electrophotosynthesis, and it works very well. Now, the difference that I've been able to accomplish outside of what they can accomplish in a lot of military labs that I've been privy to understand who's doing what, is they're able to grow a little bit of microbial algae with little baby electrical impulses, but they can't get over, microamps. Not even milliamps, like microamps, because otherwise they kill it. And when you understand that part of it...
Yeah. We'll pick this up when we come back from break. This is our last break, and then we can finish your thought there. Sorry about that.
Whether your alleged government has told you or not, America has been receiving nearly non-stop airborne radiation in one form or another from Fukushima for 3 years in March. And now with the radioactive polluted mass of the Pacific Ocean about to hit the entire West Coast, you must prepare yourself. The tragedy of Chernobyl resulted in the development of one of the most potent fighters of radiation poisoning known. It's called BioAge Superfood, a blend of the 4 most powerful immune-building, radiation-protecting, Chernobyl-proven algae on the planet. Grown in Kamchatka and imported to the U.S., I have taken BioAge Superfood for nearly 3 years and would never be without it. Go to BioAge.com, mention rents, and get 10% off this essential immune-building product. That's BioAge.com, and mention rents for a 10% discount. BioAge.com.
Free energy now!
Welcome back. We're talking about Puchtas. And David, before we went to break, you were talking about how the military is playing around with these things, can't get over microamps. Go ahead and finish.
No, we can touch the container. Yes, I'm here. Hold on 1 second.
Okay. So Dave's got to attend to the matters in the lab. Go ahead and interrupt me when you come back, Dave.
And then from here down to the filter house. And tell Cirilla we can know
Life. I have to tell you that we didn't give him much time heads up on this, and glad that he's coming on to tell us about these breakthroughs. This is cutting edge stuff, but he does have things that are going on that he's got to keep going. Didn't have time to get a backup, somebody to kind of handle things while he's off on the phone. So, you back, Dave?
Yeah, yes, I am, and I appreciate that, Sterling, because you're right. We're on a tight timeline, and you caught me during the middle of a normal work day, and I usually don't. I don't take phone calls very often during the work day, and I just want to get stuff done. So, these guys are off doing something right now that I asked them to kindly do, and now I have a minute. So I guess where we're at was...
You're talking about the military getting just over microamps?
Yeah, this is nothing spectacularly new that you can stimulate an algae to do something or stimulate its growth on a very small level. That's the whole world of microbial fuel cells and trying to harvest the energy off of those. So it's solid science that guys are working on, just like we're trying to establish the industrial footprint of HHO or hydrogen on demand as being a recognizable part of physics. And I believe that over time we'll get past the hurdles of the outrageous claims and the pseudoscience of that, and put proper testing on the ground. I'll put a plug in for AliCat flow meters. They have a specification. If you go to alicat.com, they have a specification for their flow meters for hydrogen on demand, or HHO. So that you can actually calibrate your fuel cell to your energy input, output, and flow. They've done that. They're the best in the world that does that. You have companies like Square One Energy that have built their servo integrated controllers to talk to the AliCat to give you algorithms to read out on the screen and monitoring. You're starting to see companies that have put several $1 million collectively into research and development and building this stuff, whether on their own accord or by request, like guys like me that say, hey, I need something done specific to my technology. Can you do it correctly? And they have. So we're starting to see these things off the shelf now. And eventually, it'll be like the stereo world where you can go down and buy stereo that'll blow your neighbors off down the street, or versus 10, 15 years ago where you were pretty cool if you had 6x9s. So that part of the world of technology that we're in, I'm really happy to be involved with and see that we can actually feel and touch this stuff. What I'm doing is protecting a very coveted part of research that I've been working on for several years, and putting that into a product that you can touch and you can feel and you can use. It's no different than when I'll go all the way back to the beginning, when Edison just worked his butt off in the lab to make a light bulb. It was his constitutional right to do that. That's where we're at. We have the right to build and be happy doing that. And I don't see any problems with it. And it's not voodoo. It's actual putting physics down and understanding physics and science and using them to your ability to produce a product that's affordable and accessible.
So that said, let's get back now to describing what that people would be getting, and how much does one of these things cost? This larger than a briefcase size unit that would sit behind your back seat and make fuel on the fly as you're going down the road.
Like I stated, our smaller hydrogen fuel cells are $15,000. That's the starting base price.
$15,000?
Yeah, at the moment we don't have anything affordable in a production, because they're all custom hand built. They can go any cheaper than that. So it fits in a commercial application. So you have to have like a semi truck, or hey, you could be a rich Hummer owner and just want one. That's perfectly fine too. But if you're looking at it for a financial edge, you would be in a commercial. A real estate driver who drives around their car all the time is something that they would be using that. As you step it up a little bit further, it gets into extremely expensive equipment. And I should say that probably more carefully. If you can't afford it, it's expensive, but if you can afford it, it's reasonably priced for other technologies out there that supplement or take place of alternate fossil fuels.
Yeah, what you just said is that even at $15,000 with return on investment of fuel that you don't have to purchase, you're going to get a return on investment of maybe, 2 to 5 years?
you'll break even. If you're a semi-truck driver, you have an ROI of 9 months to under 3 years, depending on your driving habit. And that's, in the banking world, that's huge. So return on investment.
This is making diesel fuel, or can you also make gasoline?
You can make diesel, and you can refine it up to make gasoline. That's where the hydrogen comes in on demand. It's because we're not necessarily burning the hydrogen like you would in an HHO type generator set. You're using the hydrogen or the hydrogen deuteride as a catalyst to get the fuel's BTU or cetane rating up to a position where you can burn it.
And this is something, this refining's going on in the back seat?
Correct.
What kind of regulations and safety and all that kind of stuff do you have to jump through and make this to market?
Because of where I come from the automotive and engineering world, which is Porsche, Mercedes-Benz, and machining and diagnostics and electrical platforms of all those vehicles on pretty much the highest end that you could possibly get to, safety is number one. All our systems talk to all the safety features of OBD, so you get a crash, it shuts off, all the way down the line to runaway stuff. That has been done and put on the shelf years ago, building the control units to do that, using Bosch registered chips and so forth and so on to make sure that the safety side of it's fine. The pressures at play, those are machining aspects that we work on a regular basis to make sure these things can handle the pressures and the forces that we're requiring it to do, from electrical discharge to the high pressures and the temperatures that are needed to make everything reform. So that's a very, very safe platform with known safety features in there for shutoff and protection. The durability of the units, well, they are, I guess you would say, indicative of cost. If you want something cheap, you can go down the road. If you want something quality and durable, that's what I'm affording to build for customers and future customers. You're only going to get quality from me. You're not going to get some thrown together, bubblegum welded component. You're going to get high quality, high tolerance. We hold our tolerance in the machining here to 0.004. That's, tenth of a thousandth tolerances when we machine things. We're looking for quality aerospace products at an affordable rate.
Now, when we talk about the ability to purchase one of these things, do you have yet a website where people can go? Last we talked, you didn't yet.
Nah. Listen, I've owned companies since I was very, very young, and, that part of it, it's not really a big, huge interest to me. If you want to get a hold of me, you have enough information on your site with my phone number, make a phone call. I have an email address that's publicly listed on my YouTube and all over your site. They can just make a phone call to me. If you're very serious about it, we can talk. I'm not interested in, I do enough open sourcing on my YouTube and supporting other guys that I don't need to do much more. That's probably what will happen more than likely as the marketing team comes in. They'll probably do some sort of a web advertisement in the co-joint venture, but that's up to them. That's not what's important to me right now. What's important to me is making sure that this technology is safe, it's and doable in all those aspects, and that is really where I pay attention to. I'm not interested in making a huge splash. Well, that doesn't really make sense because you've met me in person, and I have a tendency to enjoy my time in public. But outside of that, I just want to make sure the stuff is safe. I want to make sure that the product gets in people's hands that can, appreciate them and enjoy them and go forward.
Well, you've got one customer in queue now. What kind of testing have you done to get it ready for them?
So it doesn't even go beyond testing. It goes beyond tearing apart every aspect of 30,000 hours of lab testing and making sure all processes are going exactly as needed. And then those processes are programmed into the algorithms of the environmental side of Hydro-Me to give it
You've been listening to
safety and execution.
Yeah, we've come to the end. Thanks, Dave, for joining us. Exciting show. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Sterling. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
News at freeenergynews.com. We invite you to see our directory of energy technologies at peswiki.com. That's peswiki.com. PES, the Pure Energy Systems Information Network.
Gas and fuel efficiency, and could run engines 100% on water in the future, can be bubbled into our drinking water to create microclustered structured water for healing all cells in your body. And the role of free energy in empowering society, a little thing I did on my Sterling Sunday School, tied it into free energy. And also I posted a page, Best Free Energy Applications, a list and prioritized strategic way of the best applications for exotic free energy technologies when they become available. Criteria include promoting freedom and independence from the corrupt powers that be, to support emergency preparedness, to empower the individual, to support societal infrastructure, etc. Go check that out. Hoverbike by Chris Malloy was actually one of the things that spurred me to write or compose that page about the best applications, because a hoverbike would be a great place to put a free energy device. Go 100 miles an hour up to 10,000 feet high. They built a third-scale hoverbike drone that you can actually purchase, and it's a remote control device. Pretty nice-looking technology. Talking about sexy, Quant e-Sportsman limousine approved coming up with. They've been quietly but not ineffectively using manufacturing or been doing manufacturing of HHO units, and now recently they've been manufacturing Roche buoyancy home power systems. They may be the first to commercially produce exotic free energy technologies for home power applications. We're in process of trying to get a bead on just how far along they are, what they have, who they are. They've been quietly going about and doing some amazing things over there. I watched a couple of their videos today. Amazing group of Germans over there. Germans have a great reputation for engineering, and it looks like they're carrying on in that tradition. So earlier in our, actually yesterday, posted a link demo tour schedule for their buoyancy power systems coming actually in 2 days, September 6th. If you live over in Europe, you can go check that out. The device is small, 2 meters high, but is self-running and produces 300 watts over unity power. That's just a demonstrator, not the home power system that is quite a bit larger than that. Did a story earlier this week. Finished their funding through donations of 1,000 people. They did an update, so they're able to complete their phase 3. They also showed some photos from their collaboration with Tesla Energy Solutions LLC. American Visionary Art Museum to feature Tesla Pond and others. Quote, our musical dinospheres will be featured on display at the American Visionary Art Museum in Baltimore, Maryland. Opens October 4th, runs through August 30th. I did a little editorial yesterday. Free Energy News disappears. How would you feel if you were confronted with that headline? Or what if there were no headline, only the disappearance of our Free Energy News service because funds were insufficient to maintain it? Even as we are so close to the Free Energy Quest finally materializing, just a little plug for donations, and obviously we would love to get some loans because we're confident that this thing is going to materialize and we'll be able to pay back those loans. So far, that petition has not been answered. We'd love to not have to hit people up for donations. HHO bubbling into your drinking water for health healing, the same hydrogen gas used to save you. Solar Hydrogen Trends response to the Register's, quote, bad math. Robert Avatizian, who's working with Solar Hydrogen Trends team, submitted a rebuttal to the Registered article. And in response to Solar Hydrogen Trends press release, pointing out some false assumptions and bad math, I did a poll about the offensiveness of the wording of Robert's rebuttal. Had some interesting input on that. The audience, while being supportive of Solar Hydrogen Trends in general, did agree that maybe they were a bit over the top in some of the language that was used in that rebuttal. Just a little politics going on. We got an update from G1, Gyroscopic Resonant Inertia Pulse Motor Generator, an unprecedented system that operates in open synchronization. The large moment of inertia of the gyro flywheel helps resist a change in motion under load of its inboard three-phase alternator attached directly to the gyro, while not being mechanically connected to the local axis of symmetry. If the load is excessive, it breaks free to freewheel and resynchronize as the conditions change. QEG has funded
Free Energy Now.
Imagine a world in which each home has its own power generator that obtains its energy in such a way that no fuel has to be added. Imagine every vehicle being able to run without ever stopping for fuel. Imagine each appliance having its own power source that never has to be recharged. That is the world of the future. Join with us now as we track our progress towards such a world.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sterling Allen. You can join us online at freeenergyquest.com. We're joined today, September 4th, 2014, by David Puchtas of Proton Spin Technologies in California. He's going to be telling us about his latest work with his HydroMe True Fuel Cell and his Blue Me fuels grown organically from saltwater. But first, before we get into that, let's do our This Week in Free Energy News recap. Heading our news this week, Gaia Energy, Global Association for Independent Energy and Altruism out of Germany/Austria, have been stunning us with what they've been